Hey everybody, welcome to This Week in Birding for the week ending May 15th. It's Josh Engel and Bob Dolgan here again, talking birding in the era of social distancing. Josh, how are you doing this week? Everything okay?
Yeah, it's good. Have had some good yard birds here. It's raining a lot today, but yeah, it's been a good week.
Good, good.
It's
Are you
like mid-May is, it's birding season, so
yeah, you don't have to go far
yeah,
to see
don't have to
good
go
birds.
far.
Yeah. We're going to kick things off by talking about Global Big Day, which took place this past Saturday and intersected locally with the spring bird count. So Global Big Day is a day where people from all over the world are counting birds and entering their data into the eBird database that's out of Cornell University in New York. And in Cook County, we had kind of a neat little piece of data that we stumbled upon, and that is that we had the chance to be maybe the #1 county nationally in terms of checklists submitted. We had 683 checklists submitted last year, unfortunately we didn't quite make it because of those darned Cornell people out at Tompkins County, New York, which amassed 800 something checklists out in the snow, no less, of the Finger Lakes region. But it was great fun, and of course it being taking place on May 9th, generally there are more birds around. So and Josh and I actually saw each other for a little bit, socially distant, of course. Saw each other out at Gilson Park in Wilmette, which was fun. So but I enjoyed it. I don't know, Josh, you hit a few more places than I did, so you probably had even more fun.
Yeah, no, it was in terms of birding, it was pretty slow. I think we ended up with about 77 species for the day around Evanston, north suburbs of Chicago. Whereas on what I would consider a good year, you'd typically get over 100 species. So in terms of diversity, it was pretty slow, all weather related, basically. We didn't have good winds to bring a lot of migrants that day, but it's always a fun day. There's always some interesting surprises and some, this time of year when you spend enough time in the field, you're going to see something interesting. I think we've talked about that before. So, like when we were at Gilson and saw a turkey vulture being dive bombed by a peregrine falcon,
Yeah.
neither of those is rare around here, but
Right.
it's an interesting bit of behavior that we got to witness that, if you don't get out and look, you won't see that sort of thing. A little bit later at Gilson Park, we saw a merlin fly by. It's a little late for a migrant merlin. And trying to rack my brain for other highlights. Had a few Forster's terns in the morning at Northwestern University on the campus there, but there were still signs that it was pretty early in migration, that a lot of birds hadn't arrived. We saw more hermit thrushes than other thrushes, for example, whereas hermit thrush is usually the first species of those brown thrushes to pass through. You'd expect them mostly to be gone by Global Big Day spring bird count time, but this year they were still around. And we also saw brown creeper, and there were reports of golden crown kinglets and some of those earlier migrants.
Yeah, no, it was, and I mean, it was cool. We were looking out at the Baha'i temple, and there's peregrine falcon circling around, and all of a sudden a turkey vulture is soaring up there, and then the peregrine falcon kind of goes after the turkey vulture.
Yeah,
Pretty.
and the closest peregrine falcon territory would be right in downtown Evanston, the famous pair that nests on the Evanston Public Library. So I think it's safe to assume that the peregrine was, one of those adults, and objected strongly to having another raptor in their territory, even though turkey vulture poses no threat whatsoever.
Right, but you still got to defend the airspace over Evanston.
That's right. Yeah.
It was really cool. And Gilson Park too. Just a shout out to Gilson Park right now. I think nice place to go on the lakefront that's still open, with kind of a nice mix of habitat. So I'd throw that in there for folks.
Really nice. And actually, I've been going there for a long time, over 25 years probably. And It's one of those places that's really improved a lot. There's been a lot of effort by people in Wilmette Park District to do some native plantings and improve the habitat there for migratory birds. So it's actually gotten better and will continue to get better as those plants grow and fill in. And so I'm actually, I've recently moved back to that general area. So it's a place that I'm looking forward to going more and more. They also have a nice brand new beach house there, which is a beautiful building. And Ted Wolf, who's a local birder here, did the landscaping around that. He's a landscape architect. So I'm sure that the new plantings around that will attract some good birds too.
Nice. So I also went down to Canal Port Riverwalk, which is a gritty stretch of the South Branch of the Chicago River, and met up with Carl Giametti down there, and we walked that stretch. We were officially part of the spring bird count, and I stumbled across a nice green heron hunting in the back of one of the slips behind a barge. We also scared up a spotted sandpiper over there along the river, which was nice, first of year for me. So I got a northern water thrush along the riverbank too. So it was, again, just as we've said before, any day out, just kind of spending the day looking for birds like that and devoting oneself to that is exciting. So, good stuff. We're also going to talk a little bit about, some of the more bigger ongoing counts of birds at sort of key migratory hotspots in the Midwest. And this is a bit of a promo here, a plug for something Josh and I want to do next week with This Week in Birding, and that is we'll have from Whitefish Point, Allison Vlog on with us, and we'll do a live event with her and Brad Baumgardner of Indiana Audubon Society. And Allison is up at Whitefish Point in the UP of Michigan, up on Lake Superior. Brad is spending a lot of time at the Longshore Bird Count in Indiana Dunes, up on a tower about 60 feet above Lake Michigan in Indiana Dunes State Park. So we're going to get some takes from them on what they're seeing, which, as much as we're enjoying the local surroundings here, those are places where you're just going to get some unbelievable counts and flights of birds. And then once you get up into the Whitefish Point area, it's just, all bets are off. You got potential for boreal species and just a whole nother set of species. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and with the spring bird count having just happened in Illinois, that's one of our Illinois' big bird population monitoring efforts that goes on every year. At these places that you're talking about, Whitefish Point and Indiana Dunes, they've these dedicated migration counts every year. In I think Whitefish Point is spring and fall. Indiana Dunes at least spring. I'm not sure about fall up there, but these are great ways to again monitor bird population, study migration, and they're not that far from our home area. So I think that's going to be a really interesting discussion. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, and when you look at the data at Whitefish Point, like as much as we love Montrose and love to highlight the numbers that come out of Montrose, a place like Whitefish Point is going to top Montrose in terms of species. So it's one of those.
Yeah, and some of the counts that they get up there of birds like common loons and red-throated loons and redneck grebes and long-tailed ducks, and it can be pretty astounding. And they also get, it has a way sort of like Montrose of attracting oddities, and the list of vagrant birds that have shown up there is almost mind-boggling. I think they had a short-tailed hawk one time, which is mostly a tropical hawk, among many, many others. So, and of course we talked about Indiana Dunes recently with the common ravens that showed up there and hung around there. So that place got some interesting.
So, exciting, and it's fun to dream. I guess we can't be out there ourselves. Indiana Dunes State Park, though, I think is still open. So
it is, yeah.
So get out there and be socially distant. No facilities, but you can get out there. All good stuff. So, I was just lamenting personally, I haven't been out birding much this week, but I have been following on the social feeds a ton of warbler activity from LaBaugh Woods, which is on a little forest preserve that is super a very very good hotspot on certain days in spring, and just tended to very carefully by a very dedicated group of stewards in terms of habitat preservation and restoration. But there's just been these incredible photos of these flocks of warblers that are moving through there, and primarily it's our bird of the week that we wanted to highlight, and that's the Cerulean Warbler, which is a beautiful, if uncommon to rare, visitor to our area in migration. And they're just people, thankfully there have been, I think, multiple individuals there that have been really cooperative for birders, and a lot of wonderful photographs are coming out of that area.
Yes,
But what a cool species this is.
just a spectacular bird. The blue of a male cerulean warbler is really unique in the bird world, and the female has a sort of greenish blue color on her back that's really unique and spectacular too. Labatt Woods is on the north side of Chicago, along the it's really an urban forest patch that has this way of attracting just incredible migrants. And Cerulean warbler is a bird that birders go gaga over because it's uncommon, it's beautiful. It actually has quite declining populations, so it's been in a lot of trouble recently. And to me, it's sort of a bird that symbolizes more wild places. So seeing them in the city is really special. And actually, speaking of the Indiana dunes, that's probably the closest place to Chicago where they breed. So they nest in Indiana Dunes State Park, and that's a good place to go and at least hear them in early summer, because they do sing up a storm. But one of the real treats about this pair, which I haven't gotten out and seen either, unfortunately, that the two birds that are hanging out in Labatt Woods, is they're almost on the ground. We've had pretty cold weather recently. There's not a lot of insect activity up in the trees. A lot of the insects are down on the ground. So these Cerulean warblers which are typically all the way up in the forest canopy, where they can be extremely difficult to observe, or at least observe well. They're feeding almost at ground level. So the photos that have been coming out of Labatt of both male and female Cerulean warblers is just absolutely spectacular. And maybe if they're still there today or tomorrow, I'll get out there to see them, because that would be a real treat. And for some reason, seeing female Cerulean warblers is even rarer than seeing males. You just don't get to see a whole lot of them. So there's actually been another Cerulean warbler in the north suburbs at the Skokie Lagoons that's also proved pretty popular.
Yeah. And I'm trying to rack my brain here, and there's a book by the author Jonathan Franzen called Freedom, that the Cerulean warbler famously is the subject, a key character sort of in
and the cover has a big picture of a Cerulean warbler.
Yeah, but definitely a bird that very much the treetops talk about, like birders back, which is the condition when people have strained their neck and back so much from looking up with their binoculars high in the trees. The Cerulean warbler typically, along with maybe like Blackburnian warblers, I would put in that category. You're going to get birders back normally with these birds, but here in Chicago, and especially when we had Montrose, you'd have to see this phenomenon quite a bit too with these kind of species at times. But at Labatt, yeah, given the season, the season we've had, the birds have been staying low to the ground, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, and this cold weather, Cerulean warblers spend the winter in the Andes of northern South America, so a long ways from here, where the weather is much warmer. So I'm guessing that this cold weather is a shock to their system. But one thing that a lot of birders at least know about, if they don't partake in, is bird-friendly coffee, where coffee is grown sort of mixed in with the forest. And there's been some research that shows that Cerulean warblers are one of the real beneficiaries of shade-grown coffee in the winter. In the Andes of northern South America, they'll actually spend the winter in shade-grown coffee plantations. So if you do drink shade-grown coffee, you're helping the Cerulean warbler, and perhaps Blackburnian warbler too, which winters in a similar area.
Yeah, no, it's great. I think it underscores the need for these sort of mature hardwood forests, really that I believe provide the nesting habitat
Yeah,
for
yeah, and there's been a lot of concern over declines in the number of cerulean warblers. I just checked actually. They're listed now as near threatened by BirdLife International, which is sort of the international organization that assesses the endangered status, threatened status of every bird species in the world. And until recently, cerulean warbler was actually considered vulnerable, which is a threatened status. But I guess their populations have stabilized in recent years, which is great news, and they've been downlisted, so to speak. So now they're considered near threatened, which means that there's concern about them. They could become endangered, but they seem to be doing more or less okay right now, which is good news. But yeah, they're pretty habitat specific, and they need good habitat. So besides the Indiana Dunes, another place where they breed not too far from our areas, along the Mississippi River at Mississippi Palisades State Park.
yeah,
Which is another great birding spot and a real good place to go and look for cerulean warblers.
yeah, very cool. I was in my old stomping grounds of Ohio last summer, and in the southern part of the state, and walked out first, right, pulled up like in the car, got out of the car when we arrived, and right away in like one of these, hilly, like, forested areas, cerulean warbler, right out of the gate singing. So pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But cool. Thanks so much, Josh, again. It's great, always great chatting, and we'll be back next week with our live conversation featuring Allison up in Whitefish Point and Brad Baumgardner at Indiana Dunes. So it's going to be a ton of fun, and we'll be getting information out as to how to join that conversation.
And that'll be Saturday, May 23rd in the evening.
That's right, Saturday, May 23rd, 6
so we'll
p.m.
get information out about that.
We'll get the information out, hopefully. So great. So have a great week. We'll be back soon.